hello. So this is the part 2 to how I finally started working with my guides. Now I have my notes on the side of me, so if I'm glaring over there, that's why. I'm very bad at keeping focus because I like my eyes darting back and forth. So excuse me on that. Bear with me. Okay, so this is part 2. Part 1 was my 10-year in review. So my spiritual awakening started 10 years ago. It lasted like the heavy dark night of the soul lasted 2 years. Absolutely devastating. Almost took me out. I'm going to talk about that specifically in a whole other video. Trigger warning, that one will be about suicide awareness and prevention. But right now I'm going to talk about how I started working with my spirit guides this past year, especially in comparison to 10 years ago. When I had my first spiritual awakening 10 years ago, I was surrounded by extremists, and they took a toll on me, like such a negative toll on my mindset, that I was like, if this is what spirituality is about, I don't want anything to do with it. And so it took me to 3 years. I went through a really hard time for 2 years. Then I kind of started getting out of it, back in and out for the third year. And then, I'm not gonna lie, a very close friend of mine, kind of like my on earth angel guide, passed away pretty ruthlessly. And that broke me. Like, that broke my heart. And I remember being at the church in the hospital, and this kind of is very significant for me right now. It's kind of like that Easter egg, but I remember being in the church after he passed away. I had been going through such a hard time with my spiritual awakening and the dark night of the soul. It had already taken its toll on me, and then when he passed away, I remember going into the church and saying, if he dies, there is no God, and I will never believe in a God again. And he passed away. And that was when I was kind of like, what's the point of spirituality? People are extreme with it. Nobody understands that we are still humans in human body form, therefore we are here for a reason. I was also really thrown off by all the conspiracy theories that people were saying, and I'm very much like a naturalist, like I love nature. However, science exists for a reason. So I felt like there was a huge divide there, because it's like, I still love science. I understand the need for science. I do agree that sometimes medication and science uses too much evidence to explain everything, whereas sometimes the answer is in the unseen. So, okay, so what I mean by that is science is very good at the evidence. However, if science doesn't have the evidence, to them, well, it doesn't exist. Whereas in spirituality, when you are somebody who's like psychic or can see the unseen, it's very difficult to be living in a headspace where you agree with both the science stuff and then you also agree with the non-science stuff. So it was very much like I had to pick a lane, and it was like this way or this way. And I said, hell no to both. And I just kind of went my own way. I knew that the biggest thing that was struggling for me at that time, that was a struggle for me at the time, was the fact that I am a war child and I never actually properly dealt with these emotions. So I just started kind of going through processing my emotions very, very, very slowly. I didn't go, like I dealt with more of the therapy part, but it was more so experiencing all of these suppressed emotions that I had, experiencing them one by one and releasing them properly. And that takes time. That took me from 2013 until like last year. What year are we? 2021. So it was like 2020, end of 2020, that I was like, okay, I get it. So I ended up just taking time to just deal with these emotions and suppressed emotions and whatnot. And then at the end of 2020, I received a call. So the spiritual call. I do have to admit, I was on shrooms, and that probably helped me hear the call. But I remember literally like like I was in such a good mood. And I remember lying down and I remember seeing fucking guides above me, and it was like it was like we were at a business table, like a table and like a business meeting kind of thing. And I remember just kind of looking around being like, oh, this is so cool, blah, blah. And I remember them like literally looking at me and being like, so you have a choice, your spirituality, you're gonna do it, or are you just gonna stay in the same spot that you're in? And I remember saying, yeah, we're gonna do it, let's do it, let's do it, let's do it. And they put me through hell again, except this time I was more prepared to get myself out of it. Damn it. So yeah, I was more prepared. I was better prepared to get myself out of it. And for the first 3 to 4 months, I kept getting messages of like, it's okay if you say no, you can say no, you have free will, blah, blah, blah. And one thing that I remember, especially from a few months ago, was realizing how much easier it was for me to process all of my emotions this time around compared to the first time that I had my awakening 10 years ago. The biggest difference was that, one, I was emotionally mature enough to know that spirituality is about dealing with your shit first and then having the perks of spirituality after. So when I started talking to my spirit guides this time around, I made sure that we were all aware that my mental and emotional health comes first. And that's when I started recognizing my purpose. I have so many emotions that I'm like I call myself an emotional support dog. And I remember writing it down for the first time in my journal. I was listening to, I think it was a Pickup Pile with like insight to what your purpose is, which is what I highly recommend, but don't get caught up in this is my only answers. If you do find you communicate well with tarot cards, feel free to pick up a deck, learn it, and communicate with your guides that way. I'm very good at communicating with my guides. However, sometimes I do like evidence, proof, and then I'll find that proof in the tarot or a sign from the guides or whatnot. But when I was journaling, I remember thinking like, why do I have so many emotions? Why are my emotions so sensitive? What is the purpose? What is the point of having these many emotions? And that's when I realized it's because I understand the emotional part of spirituality on a mental health front. And I also understand that in order for us to advance spiritually, not just as individuals, but as a society, emotional intelligence is the key to that. If you start listening to anybody in the spiritual community, channelers, psychics, whoever, probably like one of the big things and the first things that they're going to tell you or that they're going to talk about is how, like, they're just going to be mentioning a lot of emotions. Like, go look at a tarot reading and just write down how many times they mention emotions and how many times they talk about emotions, or if they give advice on how to process or deal with said emotions. Just pay attention to that. It doesn't even have to be like your own tarot reading. It can just be a random one. And that was when I started realizing how connected spirituality and our mental and emotional health really is. In order for us to spiritually evolve, get our psychic abilities, whatever the case might be, we have to become more emotionally intelligent through controlling our emotions, feeling out our emotions, understanding the duality of our emotions. Everything we feel, everything we are has the light side to it and the dark side to it. I'm gonna go into duality in another video, but that's my biggest takeaway from this year is just your spiritual journey is your own. It is unique to you. Anything that scares you, don't go into it. Your emotional and mental health is more important. And the only way that you can properly get to spiritual ascension and involvement is through emotional intelligence. So your enlightenment, going through all that, suppressed emotions, any sort of trauma, healing your inner child, getting in touch with your higher self, living in the present moment, while also still reflecting on your past and planning for your future. So once you can do all that is when you start to spiritually ascend. So a great example here, me right here, the 10 years that I said that I took my time doing spirituality, and especially in the 8 years that I stopped doing spirituality and started concentrating on my mental and emotional health, when I picked up spirituality again, let's say February, March, so fast. Like the stuff that I've done in the past 12 months is wow. My whole life has completely changed for the better. I am more secure in myself. I understand what fears I have and how to work through them. Earlier this year, I tried to take a video like this. It was horrible. I was just like a sweating, shaking mess. But having learned how to work through that fear, the limiting beliefs, the self-sabotage, like the comparisons, all of that, knowing how to work through it allows me to actually take action on the things that I want to take action on. And that's why going through that emotional evolution, that's why it's so important, because once you go through that, spirituality and your psychic abilities and everything else comes in so fast. If you are feeling like you're blocked and restricted from spirituality, especially like psychic abilities, or if people are like having these vivid dreams and you're not, and if you're feeling like, why am I not at that level? Don't put pressure on yourself. Your lesson might literally be to learn patience. That was my lesson. Patience, learn patience. So if you're feeling like, why isn't this happening fast enough for me? Probably because you're rushing something that isn't meant to be rushed, and you need to be more patient with it. I feel like I could go into a bit more with that, but I'm gonna save that for a video on lessons that you might expect from the guides. Until then, please know that this whole spiritual thing, you don't have to be a witch, you don't have to be a psychic, you don't have to be a medium, you don't even have to belong to spirituality as a religion. You can keep your religion and incorporate spirituality into it. You know, I have friends that are Christian, I have friends that are Muslim, and one thing that we all have in common is understanding love, light, and peace. And when we talk about this stuff, we don't bring religion into it. We talk about it like, oh, my religion has something similar, it's called this and this and this, and then we kind of compare to it. But at the end of the day, it's all about love, light that leads to unity and peace. And peace and unity. Unity is a whole other thing in spiritual community that I want to talk about, because I'm already seeing the divide starting to happen. And that'll be my next video. But until then, also, if you are feeling like you are being spiritually called onto, but you have kids, don't worry. If you raise your kids spiritually advanced and emotionally intelligent, you are already doing your job, okay? That is already your purpose. If you are a parent and you have children and you feel like you need to catch up and do all this stuff, don't worry. Take care of your children. I've learned a lot about my inner child and healed a lot of my inner child being with my daughter and recognizing somebody did this to me that hurt me, so I'm not gonna do it to her. And I'm also picking up on her cues, and that's teaching me to be more emotionally intelligent. And that in itself is spiritually evolving me. So if you're a parent, don't worry, you just raising your kids on the smart side of things. Just making sure that they don't have the trauma and the karma that you went through. You're already doing your job. So, yay! And for anybody else that's like, spirituality is too much, this is too intense, blah, blah, blah. I get it. Don't worry about it. You don't have to dive deep into it. Spirituality is just knowing that there is more than meets the eye. On that note, if you have any questions, if you have any concerns, if you have anything that you're freaking out about, if you have any fears, list them down below. We'll talk about it in another video. And until then, I will see you guys later. Bye.